What if the difference between having an empty pantry and shelves full of homegrown food came down to what you planted and started now? Not every garden fills a pantry. Some gardens are for fresh eating, some are for fun, and some, like ours, when planned intentionally, can feed your family the whole year round. Today we are talking about how we choose the varieties that we do with the pantry in mind, and how to grow enough of them to make it really worthwhile. So welcome back to Pantry Living. Today we're talking about something a little bit different. I usually cover a lot of cooking and preserving on this channel, but today we're going back to the start. We're going to talk about the seeds and why we plant what we plant to grow a pantry-centric garden. Around here, we garden for not just fresh salads in July. We also want yummy sauces in November, roasted potatoes in January, and, well, by the time March comes around, realistically, we're working with what's left. But the idea is to still have something left. And that means we need to be intentional about the varieties that we choose to grow here. And through trial and error and many years of experience, I'm going to share a little bit with you today as we start some seeds on just what we have chosen here on the homestead. One of the most important parts, I would say, when you're planning your pantry garden is to grow what you eat. That is essential. Go down into your pantry, take a look, take a notebook, write down those things. Do you use tomato sauce twice a week? Because if so, that's 100 jars of tomato sauce you've got to make to last the whole year. What you need to know is what you're consuming week after week. Is it tomato products? Is it beans? Are you going through a whole lot of soups and stews and that sort of thing? Because all that is going to help you decide just what you need. Take a look at your favorite recipes. Write down the poundage of tomatoes you need or whatever you're kind of making at the time. What has led to this video, I will say, is peppers. We are to the time of year where peppers and eggplants have to be started for us. You'd also be starting your onions if you grew onions that way. We do walking onions. That's a whole nother story. And if you want some information on that, you can check out Hickory Grove Farm because we go into a lot more detail in the gardening stuff there. But the fun thing is, after I've just said, make sure you grow what you eat, you've seen me make that kimchi this year and I love it. And we bought the Thai chili peppers for it, right? Now, normally we grow Aurora peppers for our hot peppers. This year, I'm trying something new. We're going to break all the rules. I'm going to take these store-bought Thai peppers because I have yet to find any in store. I know I could get some online, but I haven't found any in store for seeds available. So we're going to just see if we can get them to grow right from the grocery store, just as, well, not as they are. I'm going to take the seeds out of these and we're going to plant them in our usual method, but you can hear they are dry. I'm not worried about this. We're going to just pop a couple of them open so that we have a little bit of variety just in case one pepper didn't. You also don't know that these aren't some sort of weird hybrid or cross-pollinated type thing. Anyways, super excited to grow these peppers this year, so hopefully that works. So while we're doing this part and getting these seeds started, I'm going to talk you through just a little bit more information about how I come to the conclusions I do with the garden and how we plan what we grow here at Hickorycroft. And Pantry Living, of course. A pantry garden isn't about novelty varieties or trying one of everything. It's about growing foods that you need to make the foods that you eat every day. As I already mentioned, it's that thing. If you eat tomato sauce twice a week, you need, well, 104 technically jars of tomato sauce. That changes how many plants you'll need and what kind you grow, because you want something that is paste-minded, prolific, and hardy, definitely in your climate. I think we've got enough of those seeds. That was 2 of the peppers. The nice thing is I can still use this part. I'll break 1 more just to be on the safe side. Oh, they keep sliding. So the 3, I'll just kind of, we're going to do it really quick. So the 3 of them, you can see lots of seeds. I'll just splice over. It'll be a lot easier. So now that you've assessed your pantry and you have an idea of some of those foods that you really want to try and produce more yourself instead of kind of getting them at the grocery store, it's time to look into varieties. That's one thing that I will say is not all varieties, not all tomatoes are created equal, and they all have different purposes. I'm going to pick on tomatoes for a moment because that's something that is very, very easy to differentiate all those different types. Now, our favorite around here is the San Marzano. It's basically a Roma type tomato. More people are familiar with the word Roma. It is a paste tomato. It has a lot of meat, very, very little moisture. Now, as you can see, there is a significant size difference in those, but the one thing that I always am looking for when selecting my tomatoes is the pointy bottom. They grow in a nice tapered form, and they tend, in my opinion, to cook down quicker. They cook down even quicker if you freeze them first. That's a little trick which I talk about in a lot of my videos. So really, that is why San Marzano makes up the majority of our tomatoes. We usually plant 3 trellises and a minimum of 27 of them every year because they do our things like ketchups and sauces and curries, things like that. So they really do get used a lot around here. But that doesn't mean that we don't grow fresh eating ones as well. We love our yellow pineapple tomatoes. We love cherry tomatoes. And one thing we're definitely going to be growing a lot this year, which we didn't grow at all last year, is our Scotia tomatoes because they make amazing juice. And as you've seen through a lot of my videos, I tend to come back to the juice when I don't have fresh tomatoes and use it in my bases for soups, stews, all that sort of canning that we do all winter long. So I like to have a stash of 100 jars of juice, which I will say is a lot of tomatoes. And another thing that I will say, if you're thinking about a pantry garden for tomatoes, is think in rows, not plants. That is an essential thing because you will be shocked at just how many tomato plants you need to really make all those sauces. Now, if you don't have the space, my suggestion is just choose one thing. Choose ketchup or choose pasta sauce and kind of work back from your recipe and go from there. You may find that you can get away with 10 plants and it's going to produce plenty because the one thing I will say is it's shocking, at least with the San Marzanos for us, how much poundage they actually produce. Another thing that I would say was essential for a pantry garden is beans, preferably multi-purpose beans. And by that, I mean you could eat them as fresh, green, or you can dry them and use them later, which you guys have seen a lot of dry beans around here. It is something that I'm of the opinion, why not? Because it takes up very little space and you can just cook it up and can it whenever you need it, or just look at it because it's pretty. We've got a lot of beans. From the perspective of those multi-purpose beans, we like to grow the Neckar Gold. I think it's Neckar Gold. If it's not, I'll write something different down here. I always say it wrong. Cherokee Trail of Tears, which verges on not being, I mean, you've got to pick those when they're really, really little if you're going to eat them green. And what we call our Bama's beans. They are all a multi-purpose. They work great dry or fresh. Then we do have a few that are just for drying and just for fresh eating, like the noodle beans, for example. They don't make a nice dry bean, as you can sort of see there. It's a little shrivelly thing, but they are amazing for freezing and for fresh eating, and that means that they still win, even though they're only single purpose. So when it comes to the beans, we tend to aim for about 10 foot of trellis space per person. We only grow pole beans. We find it just works a lot better for us, but you do you. Now, 10 feet of space, that's not all going to be the same kind. So if we have 4 of us here and 40 foot of allocated trellis, we are splitting that up between almost 5 different kinds of beans. So there is a lot of nice variety, which works really, really well. I'm trying to keep this video relatively short as we're starting our pepper seeds here. You can see we use the baggy method. I will link a video on Hickory Croft that goes into a little bit more detail about how we start our peppers, but we're getting these started along with our eggplants today. I got to still find those seeds. And this video is really going all over the place, and I apologize. I've not done one like this for this channel, and it's kind of given me a bit of a challenge, I will admit. But I want to share all sorts of things with you guys. I mean, we don't just cook. I mean, it's all part of it. We have to plan what we're going to grow. Then we have to tend it and grow it so that when it comes to those every bit counts challenges in the fall, we have something to put away. So where are we at? We've talked about tomatoes and we've talked about beans, and we've mildly talked about peppers. Like I said, we are doing those Thai peppers, but our main crop of peppers, and you guys have seen this in some of the videos and you've seen us preserving peppers. Our main crop is the totally sweet Italian frying pepper. Above all types of peppers, this one has won year after year after year, to the point that it is now the only sweet pepper that we grow, and we try to grow 40 to 50 plants every year. Last year for 2025, I put, my face is on fire because I did that with the seeds, and then I've touched my face and now it's burning. It's burning. It's quite distracting. Totally Italian frying peppers. That's where we were at. So last year, 2025, we brought in over 64 pounds of peppers that we've put into the freezer and tucked away and canned. You've seen us use them in salsas. You've seen us use them in my marinated canned peppers. There's quite a few things that we do make with them, but they are holding strong this year. I cannot stress enough how important labeling is. And I just about labeled it the wrong way. Thai chilies on the little one, because we don't need very many of them. We're mixing multiple years here just to have guaranteed germination. Cabbage is another heavy hitter for us this year. It is something that I have been experimenting a lot more with the kimchi and different preserving methods. So I think this year, cabbage is going to take a bigger slot in the garden, I guess you could say, because I am looking forward to experimenting with a bit more fermenting there, which is a great way to preserve it. And you have a lot of bulk per plant. You know, a cabbage plant really delivers you a lot when it comes to food storage and putting it away. So cabbage, big on the list. Let's assess this again. I keep bouncing around. Tomatoes, beans, peppers, cabbage. And those are our four main, what I would call preserving crops. Don't get me wrong, there's some other stuff thrown in there like summer squash, which I use in my August stew and that, but I wouldn't say they make a bulk of the garden. The remainder of the garden probably is taken up with root vegetables, things that are going to store well in the cellar. I want to say cellar, we don't have a cellar. It's a basement. It fluctuates in temperature. We really need to work on that. But you want to kind of go with things that you know have longevity. They can stand being stored for 6 months, more if you can. I mean, our sweet potatoes, sometimes they last up to the year. Potatoes never really make it that long, so we've not actually tested that one. But potatoes, sweet potatoes, rutabagas, turnips if you happen to like them. We only grow turnips for our pickled turnips. I've got a fermenting recipe on that, which I will link below. But there's still a great storage crop. Beets are a huge one for us. You guys have seen this. You've seen us having our beet smoothies. That is something that, I will be honest, this year we failed miserably because they're all still out in the garden, buried under snow and frozen. So I have a feeling they're not going to make it through to this year to even produce seed. But that's okay. We had a learning curve. And next year we won't make the mistake of leaving them in longer and going, don't worry, it's going to melt, because it didn't melt. But really, to make a long story short, when you're planning your pantry garden and thinking about preservation down the road, you want to grow things that will store in a jar and will hold up in a cellar or basement. Longevity, that's what you're looking for. Long-term storage. Thick flesh, great flavor, reliable production, even high production if you can get there, but sometimes that takes years of record keeping to find out which ones will do that, especially in your soils, in your environment. Now, that brings me to another thing. Keep records, track it, make note of what you've put in and what you've got out, what you need to improve, what didn't do well, and walk away and try something new. And eventually it all comes together to be, it sounds bad, pretty boring and repetitious, because it's the same thing year after year, because if it's not broke, we don't fix it. When it comes to numbers, as I've already said, think rows, not plants. You want to produce enough to fill the canner. 18 jars is way more efficient to be canning than 4. And remember that preserving takes time. A lot of time, actually. A lot of people don't think about that part when they're planting their garden. But you want to grow enough that you can preserve a lot at one time and be efficient. That is so important. You don't need acres and acres to grow food. What you need is intention. Choose varieties like paste tomatoes for sauce, multi-purpose beans so that you can kind of get a lot going on, drumhead cabbage for fermentation, long-term storing potatoes, sweet potatoes, rutabagas. All those root vegetables are great for winter calories. A few well-chosen seeds now, at this time of year, and getting them started and rolling can save you trips to the grocery store, which in turn saves you money. And it's just healthier. Growing your own food just allows you to have that, I want to say pride, but it's just knowing where your food comes from. I know that's a term that is just thrown out there all the time, but it does mean something. Knowing how your food was grown, knowing what was put on it, and knowing how it got to your plate really does count. So if you're planning your pantry garden right now, tell me, what crops are you planning to grow with the hopes of eliminating needing to buy something from the grocery store? I'm really curious to hear what you guys are working on and what ideas you have. I feed off of that. It helps me get going with motivation and maybe even getting back into some things that we stopped doing around the homestead. I think that's one of the things that really, that's where community comes in, is feeding off of each other and learning and having, there's a word for it. It's not motivation. It is encouragement. There you go. It's encouragement. So if you enjoyed this video and it maybe got you going in the right direction for planting your garden, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to follow along with our real life practical pantry living, definitely make sure you're subscribed or whatever you need to do to be able to follow along with the stories here. And for right now, we're going to get planting so that we can get growing, which means we can get canning.